Awesome. I think I just got this started. Okay, so let me go ahead and introduce myself. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for joining me in this webinar, and thank you for being a part of our sexual assault awareness page. That way you can get all the cool updates that we're going to be doing throughout the month of April, and yeah, all of that cool stuff. So my name is Cheyenne Durham, and I am one of the community preventionists that works at Call for Help. I've been with Call for Help since September and have loved my job ever since I've started. So let me kind of break down what my job exactly is. So like I said, I'm a community preventionist. I'm one of two. It's myself, and then Jaquise is one of our other community preventionists. We kind of split up the 5 different counties that we serve. So I do Monroe and Randolph County, and I do St. Clair County too. Him and I both share St. Clair County since it's big. And then he does Madison and Jersey County. So what we do is basically the main part of what we do is going into schools to teach prevention education classes. So we do 3 sessions for all of our programs that we do with school grade kids or school age kids. And for K through 5th, we teach about body safety. So our first session is all about body safety. Second session is all about like secrets versus surprises. And then our third session is about boundaries. And so those are 3 sessions at 30 minutes long. Now for 6th through 12th grade, we do 3 sessions as well, but those are 45 minutes just because we do a lot more with them, with the older groups, since a lot of the information is more in depth. So what we do with them is our Safe Date curriculum, which is a national resource-based curriculum or research-based curriculum that teaches about like dating abuse and violence and how to recognize if you're in a healthy, unhealthy, or an abusive relationship. So that's the main part that we do during the main part of our job that we do during the school year. Now during the summer months, we have a couple ideas of what we're wanting to do, but obviously since kids are not in school, and that's a big part of what we do, we like to reach out to more of the community during this time. So some of the things that I'm wanting to do is maybe like go into like daycares or like preschools that still meet during the summer, or like day programs or camps. And I also want to reach out to our older audience too, so like individuals who are in a nursing home. I'm in the middle of preparing some content for that for our nursing home folks because they're as important as our younger kids too. So we service a wide range of individuals from like preschool all the way up to like elders. So that is our summer plan. I also do want to mention on here that we just adopted a dog too. So our dog, our work dog, her name's Fifi. She was adopted a couple months ago, and we are wanting to bring her into schools with us, or not necessarily just schools, but like nursing homes or like anywhere that us preventionists go, because we find that having a dog can make the environment a lot more relaxing for individuals who, whenever we're talking about like these awkward subjects. So that's a very exciting new thing that we are currently doing. Now today specifically, as you know, if you've been following along starting on Monday with everything that's been going on our Facebook page, we are going to be talking about consent this whole week. So positive, enthusiastic consent. So this is actually a PowerPoint presentation that I give to our juniors in their second session with me. So I've kind of edited a couple things, but it's just know that this is geared towards like the older kids. So if you're a parent watching this, that is fantastic. Take some notes down if you want to. Share this with your kids. And this can also be used for younger kids also. Okay, so like I said, we're going to be talking about positive consent. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're actually going to start out with a video. Let me see if my PowerPoint goes. There we go. So we're going to start off with this video. So what exactly is consent? So it's kind of just like a rundown of what consent can be. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen this. It's a really funny video. All the kids love this video. It's called T Consent. So I'll go ahead and start playing it.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?"
Well, I don't know what happened. Let's try this again.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" and they go, oh my God, I would love a cup of tea. Thank you. Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you could make them a cup of tea or not, but be aware they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important part, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you are entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say no, thank you, then don't make them tea at all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, yes, please. That's kind of you. And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time that it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind. And you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they're unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea. And they can't answer the question, do you want tea? Because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea. And they said yes. But in the time it took you to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down. Make sure the unconscious person is safe. And this is the important part again. Don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they're safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it, going, but you wanted tea last week. Or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat, going, but you wanted tea last night. But if you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you're able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand it when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea.
All right, that's just a goofy little video I like to show at the beginning of this presentation because it kind of, obviously people kind of get the idea of consent, but it's kind of broken out down into a funnier version of it. So I like to get started with our presentation with that video. Okay, so what exactly is consent? So consent is asking for permission. So asking this permission, you must get an enthusiastic and informed yes. That is very, very important. That's literally just what consent is, that enthusiastic and informed yes. Okay, so you have to ask. So this is how you get consent. You ask. You have to ask with your words. You can't get a yes with your eyes or your body. You have to actually ask a question. Verbally asking that question. So again, you can't get it with your eyes or body. So just because somebody's looking at you in like a seductive way, or maybe like you're looking at somebody in a seductive way, I cannot speak. Or just because like somebody's dressed a certain way or like you're dressed a certain way, doesn't mean that they're giving you consent or that you are giving consent. You actually have to verbally ask with the question. So you do have to keep asking every step of the way. So for example, if you're hooking up and you want to take your partner's shirt off, then that's a new step. So you need consent. So say you asked your partner like, hey, can we make out? Perfect. And they say yes, perfect. You guys are making out. And then you're thinking like, oh, I want to take my partner's shirt off. Well, that's a completely new step right there. So you do need to ask like, hey, can I take your shirt off? Then your partner has the choice of either saying yes or no. I know you were all probably thinking this, but asking for consent is just so awkward. And many people think that getting consent asking every step of the way would quote unquote ruin the mood. What do we think about this? Do we think that's true or false? I'll give you guys a second to think about that. So we're going to watch this example right here. It's just a quick little example. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen Disney's Frozen, but this is a great example right here. So let me go ahead and play it for you.
Do you like it?
Like it? I love it! I could kiss you. I could. I mean, I'd like to. May I? Me? I mean, may we? Wait, what?
We may.
So it's just a great example right there of how you can ask for consent, even like whenever you're in that moment, whenever you really do want to like kiss somebody, like in this example. That's just a great way to show how you can give consent in that. Go on to the next slide. So going back to 2 slides ago, when I asked you guys if you guys think it's true or false that it's awkward to ask like in the middle, as you guys saw in that last video that I showed you, this is far from the truth. So if anything, the mood is going to be much more positive when both partners feel safe and can freely communicate with about whatever they want. So back to the Anna and Kristoff example there. Sorry, I say a lot. I'm just now realizing that. So back to that Anna and Kristoff example. So him asking for consent in the middle, like in the moment, that like you could see on their faces, like they still had positive faces. They were still pretty happy about that because they were both comfortable. He asked to make sure that she was comfortable, and it goes that way vice versa too. So like you, if you're a female, you can still ask a man to see if they're comfortable with it. You don't make assumptions about that. And here's a little tip at the bottom that I like to tell people. So at the beginning of your relationship, it's a good idea to talk about different terms like hooking up or going all the way, just to see what they mean to each partner, because we all have our own meanings for these terms. So my version of hooking up could be completely different than my partner's version of hooking up, and that could lead into some like drama between us two, not really knowing what each other wants. So we all have our own meanings for these terms. Consider having these conversations during a time when you are not being physically intimate. And the reason for that is because you're already going to have to ask for consent while you're being physically intimate. So you don't want to have a misunderstanding in the middle of it either, because that would make it awkward. So getting consent. So there's a couple different ways on how you can get consent. These are a couple questions that you can ask that are good questions to ask in the middle of it. So you can ask like, hey, are you comfortable with this? Is this okay? Do you want to slow down? Do you want to go any further? Are you sure you want to do this? Do you want to keep going? And then can I fill in the blank? Now the next slide, there's a lot more examples on how you do not get consent. So being in a relationship, just because you're in a relationship does not automatically give you like that stamp of approval, like, oh, you get consent all the time. So just because you're in a relationship with someone, or I'll use myself as an example. So I'm in a relationship and my partner wants to have sex. Well, just because he wants to do it and just because we're in a relationship doesn't mean that I automatically have to say yes. It doesn't mean that I have to feel obligated to. So being in a relationship that's not giving consent, you still need to ask throughout the relationship, whether you're a couple months fresh or whether you've been with your partner for like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Other ways is flirting. So say you're flirting with somebody or somebody's flirting with you. That is not giving consent just because you're flirting. Flirting is another form to show affection in a relationship. So that doesn't mean that you're giving consent by flirting with somebody or by somebody flirting with you. Being drunk. So being drunk. So think back on that tea video. So you can't give consent whenever you're intoxicated, or even if it leads to you being unconscious or somebody else being unconscious. So definitely that being drunk is not giving consent, because we all know that you're not in your right mind whenever you are intoxicated. Saying yes once in the past. So again, looking back on that tea video, when they showed up that calendar. So I think they said like, just because you said yes last Saturday doesn't mean that you're saying yes to every other day of the week, or doesn't mean that you're saying yes to like a month from now. Some other ones include kissing, silence. If somebody's not even saying anything at all, that's obviously not giving consent, because like we talked about, it has to be that verbal communication, that verbal, enthusiastic, positive yes. Blackmailing and threatening, those are not cool ways on how to get somebody to consent to something. Then we're going to go into Frozen. So we all know the fight or flight response. A lot of the third one that not a lot of people really think about is frozen. So if you're frozen, you're not actually doing anything, you're not actually saying anything either. So can't give consent that way. If somebody's crying, obviously not a good time for somebody to give consent if they are crying. If somebody says not now, they say maybe. If they say things like I really like you, but ... If they say like I'm tired, I changed my mind. If they're turning away from you, that's another big one. Something that I talk to my younger kiddos about is nonverbal cues. So whenever I'm teaching them about body safety, we go over things like, how do you know if somebody likes something? Obviously, one of the big ones is if they're like, oh yeah, I like that, if they verbally say that. But I tell them how they need to look out for like nonverbal cues also. So like if somebody, like their facial expression or body gesture. So if somebody has a sad face, that typically means that they don't like something. If somebody's like turning away from you, or if they have like your back towards you, or like leaning against you, or leaning like far away from you, then they're not like they probably don't like what's going on. So looking out for those nonverbal cues is very, very important. They say other things like, I don't want to, I'm not ready. Again, if somebody's dressing sexy, so if somebody's dressing in like revealing clothes, that doesn't mean that they want to have sex. That doesn't mean that they're automatically giving consent. You still have to verbally ask. Again, I'm going to be on a soapbox about that. Saying yes after feeling too guilty to say no. So some of my high schoolers, whenever I say this one, they're like, oh, but they said yes, so that's a consent. Again, it has to be that enthusiastic yes. You don't need to guilt trip them into saying yes. You don't need to threaten them, going back to the threatening and blackmailing. You don't need to do any of that to say yes. It has to be yes on their terms. Like if they have to freely say yes, their choice. And then some other examples include like accepting a ride from somebody, or even like accepting a gift, or like money, or somebody paying for your dinner. And that kind of leads to how sex is not currency. So we'll talk about that in a couple slides too. Okay, so we're gonna we're gonna listen to this next video. As you can tell, I really like videos. So we're gonna listen to this next one. I think they're Australian, so kind of bear with their accents. I have the subtitles or the little words on the bottom. I can't remember what they're called, but I have those on the bottom. That way you can see what they're saying too.
So guess what? I met the hottest girl at a bar on Tuesday night, and she's kind of quirky and shy. Well, you guys know I'm not exactly shy, so I just walked right over and started talking to her. I could tell she was into me.
But how did you know?
Well, like when we were talking, she was leaning in and she couldn't stop looking at me. So after a while, I just asked her, do you want to come back to mine? So yeah, she came back and, well, let's just say, turns out she's not that shy.
Yeah, but sometimes it's not that clear. Like, I ran into this girl from class the other night. We had a few drinks, and I went to kiss her, and she was like, whoa, what are you doing? We're just friends. So now it's just really awkward between us.
That sucks, but what made you think she was into you?
Well, she sometimes sits next to me in class, and we're in a couple of groups together for assignments, and when we're out, she just kept laughing at my jokes.
And?
Well, yeah, so we're just hanging out. She seemed like she was having fun, and I just wanted to kiss her. So I did. I tried.
Yeah, it can be hard to read the situation sometimes. But really, mate, you need more of a sign than that.
Yeah, like what?
Things like leaning in, or maybe she's touching you heaps. If you're not sure, just ask. I check in with my girlfriend all the time, especially when we're trying out something new, you know, just to make sure she's still into it.
Okay, so I should just ask next time.
Yeah, you could ask her. For me, it's more like just paying attention. Like on Friday, I was with my girlfriend at the pub. She had a big week with assessments and was pretty tired. Anyway, I asked if she wanted to come home with me, but I saw that she didn't look too into it. So I asked if she was okay, and she said that she was too tired and just wanted to go back to her place. So I called an Uber to take us home and dropped her off at her house, and I went back to mine.
You guys are couple goals.
Totally.
Oh man, is it two already? I've got to go.
Can I walk with you?
See, it's not that hard to just ask.
Man, I am a sucker for those accents. I love them. Okay, that's a great video to kind of give you an example of how easy it is just to ask to get that yes or no answer that you're searching for. So again, sex is not currency. So just like I said a couple slides ago, just because like your partner, for example, maybe gives you a cool gift just randomly, or maybe gives you money or loans you money, or even takes you out to dinner or gives you a ride somewhere, does not mean that you owe them anything in return. Like that is their choice to give you those gifts. That is their choice to give you that money, their choice to take you out to dinner, or their choice to give you a ride. That doesn't mean that you have to give them anything in return, and they shouldn't expect anything in return either. So you don't owe your partner anything. Always remember that. Just because your partner takes you out to dinner, buys you a gift, or says I love you does not mean that you owe them anything in response. So an example I want to tell you, or kind of a side note on like if your partner's saying sweet things to you, like I love you, or like you are my life, we're gonna be together forever, you're my person. Just because like if they're trying to get something out of you and they continually say those positive phrases like that, think about how that is manipulating you. So some of the stuff I talk to the junior high kids about is the two different typical harmful dating behavior or dating abuses. So there's physical abuse, which are the obvious like hitting, kicking, punching, biting, pulling hair, different things like that. And there's also emotional abuse. And emotional abuse, so manipulation actually falls under that. So something that I like to say, like manipulation can always look so sweet. So saying those things like, I love you, you're my person, I want to be with you forever. They might be just saying those things just because they want something out of you. So always remember that like manipulation can look really sweet. But again, that does not mean that you owe them anything in response. So just because somebody says like, I love you doesn't mean that you need to say it back if you're not feeling it. It is not fair for your partner to claim that you don't care about them just because you won't have sex. And even if you've had sex before, you're never required to do it again just because your partner is pressuring you. Remember, no means no. And we'll talk about that whole no means no in a couple slides too. So how does consent work in real life? So whenever you're engaging in a sexual activity, consent is all about communication, and it should happen every time. So one of the things I talk to the junior high kids about, or I kind of do this throughout all of my sessions, how communication is key, whether you're in a relationship or you're not in a relationship. Communication is key in a relationship, because how are you going to know what your partner likes, what they don't like, what that person likes, what they don't like? How are you going to know what kind of things they're into, and so on and so on? So that's why communication is key in all relationships specifically, because you're going to find out more about what your partner's likes and dislikes are, and your partner's going to find out about your likes and dislikes as well. So always keep that in mind, and you got to be open and having those open and honest communications or open and honest conversations with your partner. So giving consent for one activity, one time, does not mean giving consent for increased or reoccurring sexual contact. So for example, just because you're agreeing to kiss somebody does not give that person permission to remove your clothes. Having sex with someone in the past does not give that person permission to have sex with you again in the future. So again, maybe you're only comfortable with just kissing someone or hugging someone or just cuddling someone. Just because you're cuddling someone doesn't mean that they have the right to just lean in and kiss you if they can tell that you're not comfortable with it, or just in general. So always keep that in mind. And always remember, so you can change your mind at any time. So again, communication is key. You can withdraw consent at any point if you feel uncomfortable. It is important to clearly communicate with your partner that you no longer are comfortable with that activity and that you wish to stop. So again, clearly communicating. You need to have those open and honest conversations with them, because if you don't, that could hurt you and that could hurt your partner in the future. So the best way to ensure that both parties are comfortable with any sexual activity is obviously to talk about it. I know I've been saying that a whole lot, but it's the truth. You just need to talk about it. Again, communication is key. You're gonna be hearing that a lot. But what about in a relationship? So, in a healthy relationship, both or all partners are able to openly talk about and agree on what kind of sexual, or not specifically sexual, but any activity that they want to engage in. So examples would be a lot of us probably first start off like holding our partner's hands, then we'll go to kissing, then we'll go to touching, maybe cuddling, hugging, making out. That could lead to intercourse, literally anything else too. So those are some examples right there of that. You need to ask for permission for each of those bullet points that you see on the screen there. And not just the first time that you do it, but every single time that you do it. And we do this because we want to make everyone in the relationship feel comfortable about what is happening. So again, think of how awkward it would be if you tried to lean into your boyfriend or lean into your girlfriend and try to kiss them and they like push back, and now the whole situation is just really awkward, and it's like, what are you going to do from that point? So kind of like in that video with the Australian individuals, the second guy tried to kiss his girl when they were out to dinner, and she was just like, wait, what are you doing? Obviously super awkward. So again, we want to make sure that everybody in the relationship feels comfortable, and that's why we ask. So no means no. So this is completely true, but there's some things that we need to think about when we look at that phrase. So it doesn't really provide a complete picture of consent because it does put the responsibility on one person to resist or accept an activity. So it's kind of like one-sided there. And it also makes consent about what someone does not want to do instead of it being about openly expressing what they do want to do. So again, having those conversations like, what do you like? When is a good time for that? Thinking about that and having those conversations when you're not in the middle of being like physically intimate or about to be. Okay, so we're towards the end of this presentation. I like to put in some statistics because I am a stats person. I really like to see statistics on things, and I feel like it has like a bigger effect on the presentation as a whole. So like, why is consent important? Every 73 seconds, someone in the United States is sexually assaulted. Every 73 seconds. That is a crazy amount right there. About 1 a minute. 1 in 6 American women have been a victim of an attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. That's almost 15% completed and almost 3% attempted. And about 3% of American men, 1 in 33, have been a victim of an attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. Now, all of our statistics that we find about men is kind of iffy because a lot of the times men don't come forward about this stuff. Like if they've been raped or sexually assaulted or even attempted, a lot of the times men won't admit to that. So that's why a lot of the times for men, the statistics are a lot lower than what they actually are. And then the last statistic is that a majority of child victims are between the ages of 12 to 17. So that's about 66% of all sexual assaults / rapes that happen. And that is a crazy amount. So that's why a big part of our job is going into schools. I know that Illinois has Aaron's Law, which requires schools to have this type of education for kids. That statistic is really high, and that's something we're working on bringing down. Okay, so this last slide, oh, I forgot about this video actually. Okay, this is actually a great video. Consent is classic, so it kind of shows you what consent is like throughout the different decades.
Will you dance with me?
I'd love to.
Can I take off your shirt? Yes, you may.
May I walk you home? That's very kind of you, but I like to go by myself. Okay. Would you like to see a motion picture with me?
Yes, I could even go tonight.
So how far do you want to go?
I'd like to keep my clothes on.
Hey, do you want to spend the night? Well, that's okay. You don't really seem into it. I think we should wait.
Can I kiss you? I'd like that.
You want to keep going?
Not now.
It's okay. I just want you to be comfortable.
want to make out?
Sorry, I'm too tired. Maybe another time.
Sounds good.
Are you ready?
Yes. Okay, that's actually like a fantastic video that kind of sums up everything that we've talked about in this presentation today about positive enthusiastic consent. So it kind of showed from the relationship spectrum. It showed like what a good yes looks like. It shows what a no looks like, or some other options. Like even in that one example where I don't remember exactly what she asked, but the response was like, well, and so that person automatically knew like, hey, they don't seem into it right now, so now's not the time. It also showed how a great way on how to respond to somebody that says no to something. Just going with the flow, accepting that. Like maybe just because you're in the mood doesn't mean that somebody else has to be in the mood. And like, how would you feel if somebody pressured you into doing something that you don't want? So those are kind of some good things to think about. But yeah, that was a great video that actually wraps up pretty much everything that we talked about in this PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so here's actually the last slide. I like to put on some resources on the very last slide, and I usually leave it up on the projector. That way everybody has some time to like write it down, but definitely take some notes on this. Grab a pen and paper, grab your phone, open up the notes pad or notes page, notes app, yeah, whatever it is that you take notes on, and write this information down. You might not think that you need this now, but it might be a good resource to have in the future. Or maybe during this presentation, you thought of somebody and you're like, hey, maybe these are some great resources I can give to them to kind of help them. So there's this website. It's called loveisrespect.org. This is a great website. We actually got a lot. I actually got like a lot of this content from that website. A lot of information on there, good resources. They have a hotline, which the number's listed on there, 1-866-331-9473. So that is a 24-hour hotline for them. That's just their national hotline though. Keep that in mind. Another thing with that website is they have different tabs that are specific to what you may be looking for. So if you like maybe feel uncomfortable talking about something, then it's great because you can just search it on that website and you can get some more information on like that particular situation. Another great resource is their text keyword. So you text the keyword love is, LOVEIS, no space in between, written just how it is on there, to 22522. So if you text that, they actually connect you to like an advocate. You can say stop if you want, if you don't want to talk to somebody, but they might, this advocate might be able to text over some resources, which I know texting is super low key. We all text, so that's a great resource to have. And they also have a chat online at loveisrespect.org as well. So you can, it's a chat room. You can chat with other people who might be in the same boat as you. You can get some resources, some advice, different things like that. But keep in mind, it's anonymous, but I mean, keep in mind that it is on the internet. So there are people out there that's a lot smarter than me when it comes to the internet, a lot more tech savvy, but it's not, they say anonymous, but it's not completely anonymous just because of that fact that hackers could get in and et cetera, et cetera. And then the obvious, we like to keep things local. So if you are local, if you're listening to this and you are in the 5 counties that we service, so Jersey, Madison, St. Clair, Monroe, Randolph counties. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh, maybe I want to reach out to somebody that's more local, we have our 24-hour hotline. The number's listed on there. It's 618-397-0975. Like it says on there, 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can call literally anytime throughout the day, anytime in the night. Well, throughout the day, it's, what I'm trying to say is from 8:30 to 4:30, you can call, get some resources. But after 4:30, it's when it opens up to our crisis line. So definitely keep that number in mind. We're open throughout the night, open to answer throughout the night, weekends, holidays, literally 24/7. Now, I know that there's a hotline up there that I mentioned too. That's the national hotline for loveisrespect.org. But like I said, we like to keep things local. So definitely encourage you to reach out to us before going to more national base, because we'll have like the resources and more immediate, if that makes sense. So again, keeping it local. And again, this is a PowerPoint presentation that I put together for like my high schoolers. So I always like to put on here to talk to their school social worker or school counselor. Now, if you're a parent listening to this, or maybe another student listening to this, I advise you to have a good relationship with like your school social worker or school counselor, just in case something might come up. And like parents, encourage your kids to build a rapport with their like school social worker and school counselor, because whenever like you're at school or your kids are at school, they're like teachers and like social workers, counselors, all of that, all of the adults there are going to be who they're going to turn to when there's a problem in the school. So it's a good idea to have a good relationship with your school social worker and school counselor. All right, guys, well, I will leave that screen up. That is actually all that I have on this subject of positive enthusiastic consent. Now, I do encourage you guys to come in on our Facebook Live on Friday that I will be doing. It's just going to be a summation of what we've talked about throughout the week about positive enthusiastic consent. I know you can't see me in this webinar, or at least I hope I turned the webcam off, but Friday you'll be able to see me and we can chat. You can ask me any questions you may have, find out some more information, have a little discussion. Literally, it's open to anything. So yeah, definitely encourage that, and I hope to see you all on Friday. Bye.